Hey everyone, Kelly here, and today I'd like to talk about the books that I read in March. March was middle grade March, and so I read mostly middle grade. I think 5 of these are middle grade and then 2 are not. So I did intersperse some others in there, but I just really like participating in middle grade March. So a lot of these are from that readathon, which is just to read books written for the middle grade audience. And I had a great reading month. I think almost all of these were 4 stars except for one 3 stars. So I'm just gonna talk about them in the order I read them since they're basically all about the same rating, and I just was enjoying everything I was reading. So I started off the month with Amari and the Despicable Wonders by B.B. Alston. This is a bit shiny, so I'll put it down. But this is book 3 in the Amari series, and I can't say a lot about this book in particular since it's the 3rd in a series, but overall the Amari series is about a girl named Amari who finds out that there's this whole like supernatural world, or the supernatural world that we've heard about is real. So all those creatures we've heard about are real. Sorry if you're shaking. My cat has decided to rub against the tripod. So you might bump a little bit. But anyway, so she finds out there's a real supernatural world and joins this like bureau that's kind of like specifically for supernatural investigations. And so we're in the 3rd story by now, so a lot of stuff has been happening. And the thing I will say is that I like this book a lot better than book 2. I gave book 2 3 stars, and this one was a 4 star. It was more of a return to me and how much I loved the characters and the story in book 1. I felt like book 2 just kind of didn't have a great, like the plot was so like slow and kind of plotting and kind of meandering, where this one I felt like was really moving towards a goal. And so it just kind of had a fast pace, and we were, having more things happening, more characters, more supernatural creatures we were seeing, and fun things happening. So I really liked this 3rd book in the series, and it has refreshed me to want to continue the series because I was a little like hesitant after book 2, thinking maybe I wasn't going to read the whole series, but now I'm excited to continue when the 4th book comes out. So now I have a cat in my lap. At least he's not hitting the tripod now. And then next I read Amber and Clay by Laura Amy Schlitz. And this was the book I gave 3 stars to. It wasn't bad, but it just was not really for me. It is taking place in ancient Greece, and we're following 2 different characters. There's a boy named Roscos who is a slave, and he kind of gets moved around, and he starts out with his mother, but his mother gets sold. And so then he's alone as a slave of this household, and then like kind of what happens with him. And then we are also following a girl who is more in the wealthy, privileged class and does not have a good relationship with her mother. And then like she gets sent off to be what's called a bear, which is like kind of a girls who serve Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. And we're just following their things. And I think what I didn't love about this is that, you read the back and you think that it's a tale of improbable, indelible friendship that crosses the boundaries of class, gender, and even life and death. But they don't actually intersect for a very long time of this book. And so I just kept waiting for that moment when they were going to build a friendship. And it's just so small a part of this book to me that I was like, I had really lost interest by that point. It just wasn't pulling me in. I like the way she designed the book. So where we are following Melisto, who is the girl, it's just written like normal. And then when we're following Roscos, his is written in verse. And so it did kind of flow pretty easily because of those different changes. There's also little exhibits, archaeological exhibits that are put between the chapters that kind of relate to the story and kind of, bring it back to linking the modern time and archaeology to this time. So there were aspects of this I enjoyed, but overall I just wasn't that interested, and I almost gave up on it a couple times. But a lot of people love it. If you look at the reviews, a lot of people really love this. It just wasn't for me necessarily, because I think I was going in expecting this them to intersect earlier and it really being about friendship, but that's not really what it is about. And I don't even know if I could tell you exactly what it's about, other than just kind of being your own person instead of like what other people expect of you, whether they expect a lot of you being the privileged class or whether they expect like nothing of you being a lower class. But other than that, I don't really know exactly what it's supposed to be about. All right, and then I have a couple of the things that weren't middle grade. So I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is a young adult mystery, and this is a series, I think it's a trilogy. I'm actually currently reading book 2 because I did find this very fast-paced, fun, and engaging. I ended up reading this, I think, in 2 days. I listened to the audiobook, which I would highly recommend because this is done with like interviews and stuff like that. So it's got like transcripts and interviews. And so I think the audiobook is interesting because they do the interviews with like multiple narrators. So you're actually like interviewing that character or whatever. So it felt like a very interactive narration. So I enjoy that. I'm sure you would get a lot out of also like reading it in print because you would still see like the mixed media parts, but I just liked hearing it. And so this is about a girl named Pip who has decided to do this kind of project for school where she is digging into a disappearance of a girl several years earlier. I think it was like 5 years ago. This high school girl went missing and the boyfriend is accused of murdering the girl, and she knew the boyfriend, and so Pip does not think that the boyfriend actually killed the girl. And we never found the body. We don't know what happened to the missing girl, and so she decides to investigate. So this is all like just an investigation by a high schooler to try to figure out if Sal, who is the boyfriend, actually killed Andy Bell, who is the girl that went missing. And so that's like what this is all about. She's investigating. Since she is a high schooler and never has investigated a disappearance or murder, she does make some decisions that are, me as an adult, I'm like, oh, that's such a stupid decision. Don't do that. And so that is probably why it wasn't a 5-star for me, because I kept wanting to be like shaking this girl and be like, stop doing these things. Like, you're putting yourself at risk. But I have to remember, this is a young adult book. This is a high school character that is obviously not a professional investigator, that she's going to make some stupid choices. So I still found it really entertaining and would still highly recommend it because I had a great time with it, read it really quick, and I'm already on to the second one. So liked it enough to continue the series and found it fun to read. And then the adult book I read was The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Lori Gilmore. And this is like all around book talk. And so I was like, well, I'll just give it a try because it seems cozy and fun. It takes place in a small town. Try it out. This is a romance series. This is actually, I think, the second book in the series. So I didn't read the first book, but a lot of these, you don't really have to read it. The characters from the first book are in this one. And so there are times when I was like, am I missing something? Because, they're just mentioning names. Like, we already know them, obviously, because there was a first book. But I was still able to read this and enjoy it and give it 4 stars. We are following Hazel, who works at a bookstore, and she's about to turn 30, I think is what it is. So she's about to turn 30 at the end of the summer and just realizes that she hasn't had a lot of excitement in her life, and she wants to kind of have a summer of adventure before she turns 30. And then somebody starts leaving her messages and books in her bookstore, and it kind of leads her to go on forces her to go on these adventures. And she enlists the help of a local fisherman named Noah as like the person that'll help her with these adventures. And then obviously they get to know each other and it's a romance. So I'm sure you know where it goes. And it is like, I think these are supposed to be that they're supposed to be like, spicy bits, but it's also small town, like cutesy. So like kind of a Hallmark movie with spicy bits. And that's pretty much how it is, but it's not like overly spicy in terms of like sex scenes. Like there's a little bit of that, but it's not like, over a lot, it's kind of pretty basic. But it does have the small town feel. There's a lot, you get to know a lot of the characters. The only thing I didn't love about the small town feel was that even though we get to know a lot of characters, people that own all the different businesses, because this is going to be a series, and I think all of the people who pretty much meet in this are going to have their own love stories, it seems like they're all the same age. They're all like around Hazel's age, in that like late 20s, early 30s. And I'm like, in a small town environment, I want that more multi-generational meeting, like the quirky, like old lady that owns the florist shop, and the like, the you know, older gentleman that's yelling at all the kids to get off his yard and stuff like that. You know, like you want to have that more intergenerational feeling that an actual town has. And that's not like that, because almost all the characters we meet are all in the same friend group that is all the same age. So that was a little less authentic to me of an actual small town like feeling. But other than that, I found it entertaining. I really liked the relationship they were building. They both had their kind of like issues, like because Noah has been known to kind of just be somebody that just doesn't really have relationships, that more just has like one night stands or like flings. Hazel's like, well, there's no way he's gonna like me for real, so that's kind of her baggage. And Noah's kind of like feels like a disappointment to his like family in terms of career and life, and then also is like, well, I can't really ever commit, and I've never had a like long-term relationship and all stuff. So they both have those kind of baggages, so that's what kind of keeps them from having a relationship right away. That's kind of like the conflict in their relationship. But I thought they built a solid friendship and then into a relationship, so it was entertaining. I just wanted a little more a real life small town feel, and that wasn't exactly what I got, but still enjoyable. All right, and then back to middle grade. I have Minor Mage by T. Kingfisher. And usually when T. Kingfisher writes under T. Kingfisher, she's writing adult. And I think that this one, to me, it is like a middle grade book. But I think that like she usually writes under her real name for when she writes for kids. But I'm assuming that the publisher told her that this was not something they could publish for children, because there's some graphic moments in this. But like, it also just still feels like a middle grade book. So it's kind of that weird in between, that it feels like it's written for children, but has stuff that maybe isn't appropriate for children. So that's why she published it under T. Kingfisher. So if you're gonna go into this, don't expect it to be at the like scare level of her adult horror and fantasy, but like because it's like starring I don't know if he's 10 or 12, starring a young boy. It has a lot of situations that a boy on a quest would be in. It feels very much like a middle grade quest story, but like some of the scary things that happen are pretty scary. I wouldn't just hand this to like a 12-year-old without knowing that 12-year-old and their capacity to handle like horror. And it is like not too graphic, that I don't think that I think you could give this to a middle grader that was okay with a little like some scary things, that like was really obsessed with Halloween or something like that. But then there's a lot of kids that age that would not want to like hear about like kind of zombie type creatures. So think of that level, like there are like creatures in this that are like zombies, and would that child be able to handle that? But I found it really fun and enjoyed it. So like I said, this is a quest story where we are starring Oliver, who is a minor mage. So basically he's a wizard that can only do like 3 different spells. He mostly is more like the apothecary in his town. Like he can do a lot of stuff with herbs and stuff, but doesn't really have any strong magical powers. And then there's a drought in their town, and all the villagers send him off. They're like, you're the mage, you need to go and like go to this place where the clouds are at the top of the mountain and bring us rain. And so he goes on a quest to go get rain, and meets some scary things along the way, has some adventures, meets some other characters that are, you know, more friendly characters along the way. And it's just a basic quest story. It's a novella, so I don't want to give too much away, but just kind of know the vibes going in, that yes, this feels like it's written for a young audience, but has some things that are, you know, maybe for a very specific younger audience. But as an adult, I found it entertaining and like a little fun quest story with T. Kingfisher's kind of normal humor, but for like a younger audience humor. And then I read the 2 like group books that were for Middle Grade March, which are both related to The Secret Garden. So first I read The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. As a classic, obviously. I thought that I had read this as a kid, because I very distinctly remember owning a version of this as a kid. I can picture it, but as I was going through reading this, I just didn't really remember most of the things as like having read it before. So maybe I read it as a kid, but just don't have any recollection, or maybe I watched one of the movies when I was a kid, so that kind of gave me like glimpses into knowing kind of the characters, but not really the full plot. But I really enjoyed this book. I found it very charming and lovely to read. And I feel like a lot, I mean, let's be clear, this is a product of its time. So there is some racism and things like that. And especially at the beginning, because Mary was born and raised in India with her parents, but they're English, but was raised in India. So there is definitely some racism, or a lot of racism actually, with how she views the Indian people around her. So just keep that in mind. So there's that, this product of its time. And I've heard people say that, but then I've also heard people say that Mary is an insufferable main character and they find her annoying to read. But I didn't find her that way. I mean, yes, she is super bossy and, kind of, annoying and treats people badly at the beginning, like treats any servants badly. But I feel like all of that is because of her upbringing. Like, she has not been given any love or care from her parents. She has just been left alone with and like, she talks about how she hasn't even really fully been taught to read or write or anything. So even though she's in a privileged class, she's been given like nothing for entertainment or education, and is just left to her own devices. And I feel like any child that is just neglected and left to her own devices is probably going to be pretty mean if they are like told, you can have whatever you want from these servants, but isn't given any love or attention. Of course they're gonna be like little brats. Like, how else would they know what to be? They haven't been taught to be anything. And I think it's telling that as she starts to be shown some love and attention and education, her personality changes almost completely. And I think that's shown, like, that of course a kid is gonna be a little spoiled brat if they're not shown any, care. And that once she gives any of that, she changes her ways. And so I don't find her an insufferable main character. I really enjoyed reading this. I found once she gets, so basically, like, she's in India at the beginning, but then something happens, making it so that she has to go and live with, I think it's an uncle. And so she has to live with an uncle, and he has a secret garden that he's closed up because his late wife loved that garden. And so she, is looking for the garden and wants to spend time with it. And I just love the connection to nature, how being out in the sunshine and in the dirt and all of that can really heal a child, and not like as in like physically heal a child, but like lift their spirits. And actually it does kind of physically heal in the fact that like we need vitamin D as humans. So as she gets like these nutrients, she just looks more healthy because she's always been shut away her whole life. And so, yeah, I just love that connection to nature and all that, and the kind of friendship she makes as it goes on. I don't want to give away anything else, because if you haven't read this in a long time, there's stuff that I just didn't remember happening. So you might not want to know about all that. But yeah, I just found this very charming. Women's School loved it, 4 stars. And then we read a retelling of The Secret Garden. This is Moon Garden by Michelle A. Berry. In this book, humans are now living on the moon. They're also living in some other colonies on like Mars and Venus, I believe. But we are following the colony that's on the moon. They have left Earth because the plants have become toxic and were, causing people to die. So they had to leave. So in this world, like, plants are forbidden. All of their food and things is kind of done through cloning of like things from past plants, but there aren't actual like plants being, there's not like gardens and plants being used in, agriculture, to do your food. They aren't doing any of that because plants are scary, since plants are what we're killing off the humans. And so we are following this girl on this moon colony, and everybody kind of has like factions. Like, you're given you are developing a certain magic. She's always thought her magic was going to be related to math because that's what her parents have. And then she starts to feel this connection to plants, which, like I said, are forbidden. And so that's kind of the connection to The Secret Garden. She has this secret connection to plants, and they're, I don't want to give away much else, but yeah. So there's more connections to The Secret Garden. This is definitely one that, the thing I didn't love about this is that it doesn't really end. This is definitely one where if you want a conclusion to a story, you have to keep reading. This is a 3-book series, and this just ends on a cliffhanger. You definitely need to continue if you want to know any kind of conclusion. And so I didn't love that about it, because I kind of want, even if I'm reading a trilogy, I want to have kind of a story arc in one book and then move on to the other one. But this one, it doesn't feel like that. There's not just like one arc in this story. It definitely needs to continue. And I think the difference is, you know, like I had a lot of sympathy for Mary, our main character in this one, because I said she was like, you know, not given any love and care. Myra in this one, she also is similarly not necessarily neglected by her parents, but like her parents expect her to be a certain way. It's like her parents expect her to have math magic, and that's like it. And so they don't really listen to her wishes and desires. So she is like, does have, you know, is neglected in that way. But I do find her a pretty annoying character. Where people really like find Mary in the Secret Garden annoying, I find Myra really annoying character to follow. So I was having a little harder time sympathizing, and maybe that's just she's a little older, I feel like, in this book than in the Secret Garden, and so it might have been like my adult expectations of her, you know, having developed more. But she's also neglected. Like her parents aren't really like paying attention to her as a person. So I should have more sympathy for her. But I still enjoyed this book. I liked the connection to nature once again, even though in this world there really isn't any nature until this moment. And so I appreciate that. And I think I am going to continue, because I do want to know like what happens next. And since I said there's not really a conclusion, I want to keep going. And I do like that she's starting to develop, like, the friendships are starting to develop in this one, so we're getting more of those character interactions that I felt what made the Secret Garden so great. And this one, I didn't feel the characters were as well developed, and which is why I love the Secret Garden so much. There's so many great characters and character development. This one didn't feel like it had that, but I think that's because it's going to happen over the series instead of just in this book. So I can see where these characters are going to start really like relying on each other and have those relationships and grow as we follow the books. So I see the potential for that, and what I loved in the Secret Garden being in this book. You just need more commitment in order to actually get there, I think. So I'll probably continue the book. It read very quickly. Like, this is one of those that has like really big writing, so it read very quickly, and and it's very action packed. This is definitely more focused on plot than the Secret Garden is. So it does move fast. But that's it. Yeah, that was 4 stars. So overall, mostly a 4-star month. Enjoying things I was reading. Yeah, and so I enjoyed all the middle grade March, you know, interaction, different people chatting about that, and getting to do the like buddy reads, and just reading some of the middle grade that I had on my shelf for a long time. Like, I think I've owned The Secret Garden for many years and just didn't pick it up. I just wasn't pulled to it for some reason. Like, I was pulled more towards Anne of Green Gables, some of those other ones that I had read. But I think this one might be one of my favorite of the children's classics. I really enjoy this, and I could see picking it up again because the characters are just so great in it. Like, I just love even the little bird. Like, and I love how on this version they have the bird on there, the robin. Even the little robin was like a great little character in the book. And then in terms of like my goals for the year, Amber and Clay is the only book that was from my 2025 books, the 25 books to read in 2025. This is the only one I read this month, but it's one of the big ones. So I guess I got that done. And there were other books I had started and didn't finish that were part of my challenge. I just didn't get them finished in March. So that's it for me. If you want to talk about any of these books, I would love to hear from you down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.